Namaste, everyone. I'm going to give you Kundalini Yoga for the full moon Sagittarius that is happening right now as I am recording this. And for this special Kundalini Yoga, we are going to work with crystals. I'm going to share with you my first healing modality that was given to me by my mother when I was very young. This was her first healing modality as well when it comes to clearing out the negative energy, right? Negative attachments, blockages, fear, immense anger, having hostilities around you. It could be sort of hostile relationships, and clearing out the negative energy from abusive relationships, hostile relationships, and overall environments that are, we would just say, negative in the way that they're aggressive, belittling, judgmental. And also, this was a healing modality when it comes to clearing karmic curses of past lives, right? Or we can also call it generational curses that can be from the mother, the grandmother, to the great-grandmother, and so on and so forth. So this is a healing modality I'm going to share with you that's going to involve crystals, okay? So you can observe this meditation, you can participate without crystals, and then return when you gather your crystals, okay? And this is a healing modality for clearing out the negativity when we're talking about ties to people, places, and things that create this sort of self-hatred, or this aggression, this abuse, these hostilities, right? So we can really cut the ties and cut the cords to immense fear and these type of trauma relays that we have in relationships or with ourselves. Okay, it's one of the first tools my mother gave me towards raising my vibration, because being psychic since a little girl, being psychic, especially in my lineage, has a very strong mediumship ability. Ever since I was young, I would have these sort of shadow beings, right? And I would have these shadow beings around the house, and I would feel like I'm being watched when I'm sleeping, being touched, and all these, seeing kind of witches while I'm sleeping, like in my room, right? And this type of negative energy, right? This destructive, more like self-hate or earthbound spirit, right? Being in your own hellhole type of thing, right? So this was a first healing modality as a way to develop my psychic ability, because you can be very psychic, have a lineage that's very psychic, but if you're an underdeveloped psychic, your aura may not be as fine-tuned. So therefore, you could be easily susceptible to what we call spiritual attacks. But as you begin to raise your vibration, build up your aura, you're not as easily susceptible to these sort of negative attacks, because you become more vigilant, you have more discernment, you create more boundaries, and you have this sort of naval strength. You become very intimidating to these type of earthbound spirits that living in their own hellhole. They want to kind of, those little ghosts that come to you when you're sleeping, and just goblins are just, I don't know what they're doing, just hanging around, just causing ruckus, right? When you have that sort of naval strength, you're intimidating, right? You're intimidating because you have this very strong aura. And when you have the strong aura, you also have a very profound sound current, right? So you can hear in the background, I have Adi Shakti. And Adi Shakti is also a sound current we're going to use with the crystal. Adi Shakti is a mantra that was given to me later on as I continue to develop my psychic gifts. But I'm going to show you the sort of first basic tool that was given to me. So we're going to combine the two, the crystal as well as the mantra, as well as we're going to combine other sort of healing modalities connected to Kundalini Yoga. Right? So Kundalini Yoga is considered a Raj Yoga, which is the throne of yogas. It's seen as the yoga of self-mastery, which has to do with the 10th gate. We know the arc line and then the 10th gate. And the 10th gate has to do with also the 10 body, the 10 body, the radiant body, right? And the radiant body is seen as the sort of the golden goose egg of our life. The golden goose egg, which is immense healing. It's also immense nobility, integrity. It's kind of in that category of integrity, dignity, sovereignty, nobility. That's kind of when I think of Raj Yoga, or I think of Kundalini Yoga, the sort of supreme yoga, as developing this sort of charactership that makes you very magnetic. And this is something that has been practiced for thousands of years in this sort of lineage, or this arc line, like a literally arc line, like a arc of people, right? In this sort of a Sachic record, right? Who decided to develop this sort of excellent human, and the quality of what it takes to have that sort of excellent human. And it is like integrity, dignity, sovereignty, nobility that leads to this sort of creative destiny. This creative destiny, which is this like self-mastery, the number 10, right? The completion, the 10 body, the radiant body connected to the 10th gate, to the arc line, right? And that is something that only Kundalini Yoga works with. The other yogas, we say, work with the glandular system, work with the 10 body system, but the arc line, the aura, the 10th gate, or the Sachic record, is something that Kundalini Yoga definitely targets. And that's kind of, we call the sort of mastery embodiment. It's coming into the embodiment of your totality or your infinity, right? And when you're in your totality, your infinity is seen as the Raj. It's seen as the Raj of your energy, right? The sort of golden energy. We think of the golden energy as integrity, dignity, sovereignty, nobility. So before we tune in, I wanted to discuss with you all about the different perspective between Machiavelli and Lao Tzu, especially with the times that are now, with the crises that always is, as Yogi Bhajan says, but with this particular crises where we are seeing in the United States of America, there is riots. There are riots in many, many cities, and there is sort of a police aggression, we can say, of trying to control. And there's all kinds of sort of methods and way people are trying to deal with these riots. And it's quite interesting to see, even with the president of the United States, Donald Trump, and seeing his type of method on how police should handle the sort of riots and get things under control, right? So we can kind of see how our past war philosophy has influenced our decisions when it comes to dealing with these riots. And I'm going to share with you the philosophy of Machiavelli when it comes to war. He's an Italian philosopher that his philosophy very much is a part of what we know as the Roman Empire and the Roman sort of authoritative leadership when it came to control, when it came to governing the people in war, right? and how the method of war, the approach at war. And then we're also going to look at Lao Tzu, who is a Chinese philosopher, who has a different philosophy of war. And we're going to kind of compare the two. Right? We're going to compare the two and kind of also looking at what's happening right now on our planet, right? When we are looking at how our past war methods, right, and sort of philosophy of war that in many ways in regards is in a Machiavelli sort of Roman approach, right? And how we as a collective are going to transform, right? How we are transforming based off of what the vast majority are very much, what they're very much deciding, or what they're yearning to transform. They're wanting to change, right? Sort of habit when it comes, or behave, a habit or a method that's been used when it comes to war and aggression and trying to get control, right, over the people. So Machiavelli is an Italian philosopher, influential for the Roman war, right? The Roman method of war. And Machiavelli, his approach at war is very similar to what we see in our sort of global war affairs, which has a lot to do with prepare for the best, prepare for the worst, prepare for the worst, right? So there's a lot about what we can see in the United States of America, very much in Machiavelli, where you spend all of this money on weapons, have the best weapons. You need weapons, you need soldiers, make sure that you have the most, put a lot of effort. Even if you're not in war, a war period, make sure that you have everything, all the weapons that you could possibly need, right? It's also very authoritative in the way that don't trust the people. Prepare for the worst, prepare for the worst. So there was again, with a kind of Roman method of war that basically is the collective choice in our past when it comes to war, which is very much, we do not trust the people to make the right choice. So we are going to make the choice of war in order to prevent possibly a person making the wrong choice. And I think that led to the United States of America using the atomic bomb, right? Using the atomic bomb is prepare for the worst, just go ahead and create violence as a way to block any possibility of these people attacking us. So attack them before you get attacked, right? So there's a sense of, I don't trust people. I don't trust that they're going to make the right choice. And there, with Machiavelli and my sort of perspective of it, there in his philosophy, there's a sense of not wanting to sort of discuss, sort of have a discussion, or even a sort of how to turn this friction into ingenuity. There seems to be more of this sort of force, right? I gotta force it. We don't want to really listen, right? We don't have the time or the energy to listen to the people, to get to the root of what is actually being asked of us, or the change or the transformation that wants to be had. More so just get everything in line. And Donald Trump announced, when it comes to the police getting in the riots in the various cities, he mentioned about the mayor of these cities, and again, I'm paraphrasing, right? That these mayors, they need to dominate. That's what he said. They need to dominate, right? And a lot of police were not so comfortable with that idea. That's a very Machiavelli type of method. Just dominate the people at all costs, right? So we know that type of mindset in many ways takes out the human and just puts in, well, let's just take them all out. Like, who cares? We need to dominate, and these people are in our way, so just take them all out. And we've seen that type of, when it comes to Native Americans in the United States, soil. We've seen, I mean, we could spend all day talking about this type of dominate at all costs, right? Just remove them, like, get them out. They're they're on your, they're your property. You claim this, right? This is your territory. You won the game. This is your conquest. What they're doing here, just take them out. Who cares, right? So there's a sense of taking out the human, right? So again, I'm just going briefly into the Machiavelli philosophy when it comes to war, which is something we as a planet in many ways are more that sort of approach. War seems, in many ways, many people seem very confused about it. Like, nobody knows what's going on. It's just kind of go into war just for the sake of war. And many times it's fear just piling up, more debt, karmic debt just piling up that never really gets resolved. So I think with the Machiavelli approach has a lot to do with a period, Lao Tzu was also in this period. They're both in the same dark age period that we're talking about, which has been over thousands of years, where the sort of the heart of humanity has been sort of underdeveloped, right, in many ways, and the mind of humanity has been overdeveloped, right? And you can see that even in today modern times, when it comes to police sort of trying to get control over protesters, people who are rioting. And when an elder man walks up to a police officer, the police just pushes that man down. Man falls back, literally, like, cracks his head, is bleeding from his head, and then they just keep walking. That is a real evidence of this sort of Machiavelli, this sort of just push, like, don't even care about what you're seeing, just, block your heart, right? Don't feel, just be in the sort of laser focus on the goal, right? The goal, right? And in many ways, when we look at Germany, right? When we look at Germany, the goal, right? Nobody really had the sovereignty of mind, because the goal, the Jews, get them out, right? Get them out. So there's a sense of the mind, we're rationalizing something without actually feeling into it, without actually having the sovereignty of mind. And I think that's something that we've seen with the removal of Native Americans all across this United States, United States everywhere, from the east to the west. All this removal was very much a focus of just removal, with no sense of feeling into it, no sense of sovereignty of mind to actually connect with the sort of humanness of it, right? Because you just want the goal, which is either something of territory, something of conquest, something of holding your position, right? Not seeming weak to the enemy to prove something, right? That I am the leader, I am the emperor, I am the sort of master of the land, and I am the control. I am in control. Don't challenge me, right? And we can see this going down all the way to ancient Egyptian times. So that is the collective choice we decided in many of our sort of wars were just the war for the war. Just the goal was the war, right? To prove something, to protect our territory, to really, we don't trust, right? We don't trust, we don't know how to discuss, right? We don't know what is the root issue. We just need to secure it all, because these people, those people, all these people are out to get us. So there's this sort of paranoia. All of them are out to get us. So you might as well just kill them all, right? Because they're all out to get us, right? Don't trust any of them, right? So again, that's something of that is something Machiavelli observed in his culture, right? That's not something that, this is a philosophy that comes from his observation, comes from what has been witnessed, right? In this type of war for war, expect the worst in people. Expect the worst. So that, as we know, that kind of belief, it becomes like a negative, we call a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. Expect the worst, get the worst, right? So in the Lao Tzu philosophy, being a Chinese philosopher, very, very vastly different. He believed you should trust the people. Again, this goes against everything that we've experienced for thousands of years, right? So Lao Tzu, his perspective seems quite revolutionary. It seems even radical, right? When it comes to self-governing, people should self-govern. That seems really radical, right? Is to trust the people, right? Create a community where everybody feels supported, right? Kind of like reciprocity, prosperity, when it comes to take care of the people, pay attention to the people, right? There's a sense of let the people heal, let the people make peace, let the people share and discuss. Don't expect the worst, is what he's basically saying, right? Have compassion, don't jump the gun. Spend your money more so on education rather than military, right? Because when the people are educated, they tend to make wiser choices because they're educated. There's a diversity of culture in an educated mind. There's also diversity in philosophy and the way people can deal with things. They're more equipped. They have more methods, more modalities in dealing with tensions or frictions. There's an ingenuity that comes from an educated man or woman. But when people are not educated, they just feel like they're powerless. They have nothing but their body to just get what they want. So they only feel the only thing they can do is just brute force, just try to, I don't have the ingenuity of the mind to discuss with you. Frankly, I don't care to discuss with you. That's not important to me. Just give me what I want. So there's a stubbornness to that type of, right, the lack of compromise. But with an educated mind, an educated mind has more of a learner's mind, is more able to make this sort of compromise, to make this sort of to bring about integrity to the situation, right? Sense of, I'm not going to assume the worst. I want to support the best outcome, one that is not about nuclear bombs destroying the planet, extinction of the human species. Like, you know what I'm saying? So Lao Tzu, his philosophy was more gentle, you could say, was more I trust in the people, I believe in the people. Give the people what they really need: education, art, music. Give them freedom, let them have growth. Don't cage them, don't confine them, don't enslave them. Let them grow. They're not going to be so frustrated, they're not going to be so sort of egomaniac, they're not going to be so agitated and triggered, because they have this sense of room to grow, to learn, to discover, to emotionally mature. While war, in many ways, with this Lao Tzu sort of channel of thought, more so makes people, it just promotes emotional pain. It just creates emotional trauma. And that emotional trauma just makes the people more fearful, and therefore in a more easily susceptible to blame and to shame themselves, the other people, and then participate in programs that could actually lead to major consequences, such as, oh, the Jews, they're the problem, let's take them out. The Native Americans, they're the problem, let's take them out. The Africans are the problem, let's take them out. Right? So, right, there's a sense that Lao Tzu understands the consequences, the karmic debt that must be paid for this type of war for the sake of war, because I don't trust anybody. I'm paranoid. They're all out to get me. Just dominate, take them out, remove them. I don't care. As long as I'm getting my territory, as long as I'm getting my glory, as long as I'm getting the control of my gold or whatever it is, I'm good. So there's a sense of not looking to the generations and how the consequences affect the generations, and the lack of freedom that is all sort of a consequence of war. There's no freedom. With emotional pain, you first must heal that. You first must make peace, forgiveness, and compassion before you can actually really grow. Before you can actually really be free, right, and live your life, you could say. So the Machiavelli is more so in a perspective of Roman perspective that really takes out the humanness, the sort of fulfillment of the human, and puts in more of the I want, the I need, I fear, I doubt, and I have no control over how I feel. And that's why I need control over things, because I don't know how to articulate, I don't know how to express myself with other people. So that paranoia, it's almost, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just this sort of repeating cycle. While the Lao Tzu, his sort of philosophy was more about breaking the cycle of trauma, the cycle of going from one geographic region to another geographic region to that, all until it's everywhere. It's the same thing, just happening in different ways, different eras, and different regions. It's the same thing. So Lao Tzu was more so about emotional maturity, about developing emotional maturity, knowing how to just share and discuss with your diversity of cultures, religions. There's a sense of respect. There's a sense of, I want to build up respect, not respect in a way you will respect me regardless of how you view me. It's more so, I want to build up respect as a humanitarian. I want to build respect for diversity, because that's the planet I live on, rather than you will all bow down and kiss my feet and respect me, even though I have not proven myself, I have not earned it. Because I have not shown that I want to discuss, I want to share, I want to make compromise with you. So with that kind of Machiavelli war, it's like, it's the continued sort of resentment. I resent you, and then we see generations of that resentment fuels a lot of this built up tension, leading to these type of, blow-ups. Right? Because all of this resentment has been built up. You did injustice for me, I did injustice for you, you and me, and that kind of thing. So there's a sense of a man, a woman with integrity, with emotional maturity, as Lao Tzu's sort of philosophy is with war, would not desire war, understanding that war only leads karmic debt, only makes the people have basically no money. Right? It only leads emotional trauma, emotional pain, and a mess to clean up. Right? So there's a sense of, Lao Tzu is very much about like being educated, and everybody should have that education. Because when a person is educated, they have more of this integrity within themselves. They have the resentments, they have the anger, the frustration, the paranoia, the fear, the distrust, and all of this type of internal turmoil, but they have tools and techniques on how to deal with it more appropriately than I am caged, I'm slaved, I have no options, I have no opportunities, and I don't know what to do with all this resentment, these generations of resentment or trauma for this country or for this ethnicity or for this sex, right? So that this is why Lao Tzu seems very revolutionary mind, but it also has been applied in this sort of philosophy when it comes to war and basically dealing with conflict in many places on this planet. So I wanted to give you this sort of polarity of philosophy when it comes to war and the pathways that we have taken as a collective, and how we can sort of take this information and begin to really use the sovereignty of mind to connect what is going to give us as a human being and as a human species, what is going to give us the highest potential for us as human species to mature and to heal and to grow and to be educated and to have integrity and make better choices. And I think the Lao Tzu philosophy is more about we are making better choices. We're being wise about things. While Machiavelli, it's like I don't know how to express. I don't know how to deal with people. There's a sense of I don't necessarily have leadership when it comes to people. All I have is authority. Authority without leadership, right, doesn't give the people what they really need. Right? There's a sense of lack of heart. Leadership comes from an educated person, not educated in the diversity of culture, educated in the heart, in the matters, in the humanitarianism, environmentalism, because that has to do with generations of betterment, not just the temporary. I want this, give me this. They're coming, just kill them all. I don't really care about the consequence. So there's a sense of not really looking at the consequence, the karmic debt, and that kind of echo that will echo for a very long time, and then that echo will replay, right, in different areas. It'll be heard. It will be continued on, right? Like we talk about the trauma that just keeps plateauing into different forms of the same thing. Right, so you never get a break. You never get us, to actually really breathe and then start to make new choices. So I'm very, with what we're sort of learning with these riots and these protests and this sort of the way it's being handled in many ways, we're starting to really awaken to a different way of dealing with tension and friction that is more sophisticated, and we're starting to understand a more sophisticated way of dealing with these tensions that's beyond just remove them all, kill them all, right? That has to do more so we want to be in integrity. There is 7.7 billion, possibly going to 10 billion in years to come, and we better have some sort of integrity with each other. We better have some sort of ability to connect and have a better relationship with each other, right? Because we have nuclear bombs, and that's the end of the human species. It's the end of this planet, right? So there's a sense of we're all kind of looking at things from a different perspective, and we're becoming more sophisticated, or more sovereignty of mind. And I think that is more on a path of Lao Tzu when it comes to his philosophy of self-governing. Let the people self-govern, give the people education, let the people discover for themselves, let the people grow, like emotionally mature, right? Let them heal emotions. Don't keep piling up more and more war and trauma and emotional pain. Let them heal, right? Let them have integrity. Let them have a community that feels safe in a way where the brothers and sisters are starting to learn what it means to express and to share and to create with each other rather than destroying with each other and that kind of thing. Because in Lao Tzu's perspective, that doesn't really go anywhere. right? It doesn't make human beings smarter. It just makes them more fearful, and then it makes them more in resentment. And resentment is the perfect fuel for recklessness and for impulsiveness, and as well as for making rash decisions. So that kind of mind, that rational mind without that sort of heart, we have seen rationalizing all kinds of wars and then reaping the consequences of that. And then when we kind of soak it into our heart, feeling the great dread, because now we carry this type of echo of this scar in human, right? This scar, this sort of wound in humanity that makes us weaker, actually, as a human species. It makes us weaker, right? And we're talking about going to see some ETs and stuff. Unlikely, because we still have these wounds and scars when it comes to humanity, when it comes to diversity, let alone relating to some ET. We probably go get our guns and go shoot them up, because we just don't know how to deal with that kind of pressure, of friction, right? So we, in many ways, I think both of those perspectives really, it sort of stimulates I see it stimulating the perspective, the negative mind, and the sort of positive or the neutral mind. Lao Tzu represents that sort of neutral mind, that sort of neutral state, while the Machiavelli kind of works with the more negative mind, the more destructive mind. So seeing that kind of the two, you get to see that the type of how the negative mind, the rational mind, disconnected from the heart, what that kind of reaps, and then the neutral mind connected to the heart and what that reaps, right? Which is this ability to forgive, relentlessly forgive, to end the echo of karmic debt that's never paid off, because somebody is always upset and then does something, and then the other person's upset and then does something. So a sense of, with that neutral mind, there's a meditative mind, there's a sort of integrity in the spine of the person that wants to educate, that willing to learn. So there's a sense of strength. When there's, I don't want to learn, I don't want to be educated, I don't want to listen to you, there's a sense of weakness in humanity, right? And I think all of us on this planet were reaping the sort of karmic debt of an echo of thousands of years of the same thing kind of repeating, just in different eras and different regions. And how many regions on this planet are in deep sort of destruction, deep sort of just like low intelligence, like stupefied by their own behavior, or completely agitated and triggered and imbalanced, and not even knowing what it is to actually make amends or forgive or actually heal from this. So Lao Tzu was more about, we want to heal from this. We want to get better. We want to make better choices. We want to rewrite history. We want to change the narrative. We want to know how to do that. We need the neutral mind, the meditative mind, to know how to do that. Know how to put our pride aside, right? Know how to discuss with each other in a way where we're not triggered by each other's opinions and this God and that religion, and I'm agitated by you and what, your lineage and that lineage and all that kinds of things. So I just wanted to share that kind of lecture on the Machiavelli versus the Lao Tzu, and my perspective based on of my sort of soaking it in and comparing it to what is going on right now and how we are making new choices, because the echo of our sort of Machiavelli approach at war, I feel the younger generations are really starting to look at that as that doesn't work, right? It does not work. The transformation that we really want is we want to see integrity, right? And that's something that war doesn't provide. It's something education provides. It's something that soulfulness provides, a heart provides. We don't really develop qualities of compassion, of resilience, of relentless forgiveness, humanitarianism, environmentalism without a heart. The rational mind is very defensive for a reason, to protect us. But when we are over buffed up in that area, the rational mind, what happens is we can ultimately destroy ourselves and destroy each other. And then the consequence of that is we become weak or less educated. We become more imbalanced, more unjust. We have less diversity. We have less of a strong lineage or a deep culture on this planet, or deep artistry on this planet. Because people cannot build themselves up when they have emotional pain, emotional trauma. It's very difficult to try to build yourself up with that. And many generations were just trapped in this emotional pain or emotional trauma, that there are many generations like that just froze in history because of the sort of shock of it, right? When you get that kind of shock, all you do is just want to sit in bed. You don't even want to really move your body. You just, because you're stunned, you're frozen, right, in place. So therefore you're not growing, right? So we're more of integrity leads to growth, emotional maturity that leads to leadership. Authority without leadership, it doesn't know how to connect human to their destiny. We want to connect human to their destiny, humanity to their destiny. And that is something of sophistication. But when we are in just the rational mind, the ego, that kind of pride, or that kind of get it at all means, the war for the war, the kind of total defense, a lot of times we are very immature emotionally, very immature in our choices. We don't really appreciate culture. We're not really using the culture. We're not really using the sort of tools and technology of an ancient lineage to actually help ourselves balance out. When we see people who are very balanced, see people very imbalanced, these sort of a sort of whole community or whole society of this sort of imbalance because of major scars or wounds in that kind of collective consciousness. What happens is you just see people who have low self-worth, low self-esteem, they don't know how to build themselves up, right? So that kind of consequence in many ways seems very detrimental, right? Just, to get that kind of whatever, that sense of defense or sense of control, but then it's never enough. I want more, or I'm always going to have this type of never enough, right? It just gets, you just, years go on and you just basically die of paranoia. But you never really grow up. You never really mature. You never really have the sort of culture, the sort of lineage, or the sort of prosperity of community, or the sort of artistry. Because people, they grow through learning what it means to trust, to go through life lessons, and to master them, to kind of be masterful over their life. Through healing, that's when people really come alive creatively. And when people really come alive creatively, that's when we tend to really have the forgiveness, have the kind of compassion, have the willingness, the strength, the actual strength, the emotional intelligence to actually move on. To heal, to grow, to move on, right? Instead of just sitting frozen in the memory, in the trauma, and then keep repeating it. To move on. So there's a sense of strength in what Lao Tzu is discussing about. And I think the strength Lao Tzu is talking about is being able to emotionally mature through the difficulties, the challenges, to emotionally mature, to step into your integrity, to be educated, to be the scholar, for everyone to be that, so that everybody can start to really become more expansive in the way that they relate instead of tight, right? So they can develop discernment and boundaries, this type of natural, instinctual sort of humanness that we have. But we're not all going to mesh, we're not all going to do well, but we definitely can have discernment and boundaries, and we can respect that. But when we're emotionally mature, it's, we can't connect, we can't relate to our planet, to each other, because we're emotionally mature. So, and then the Machiavelli, when it comes to strength, is more so the appearance. It's more so when you talk about, the appearance of the sort of statue or the relief sculptures. I am the mightiest king. Do not dare cross me, as you will be killed and eaten by my crocodiles. That type of thing. So there's a sense of strength in the appearance. Strength in the fear. You look at me and what do you feel? You feel intimidated, right? You don't feel I am not friendly. I'm not sharing. I'm not generous. I am very intimidating. I am somebody that has this sort of, I will give you trauma type of, right? This sort of, I don't trust you. I don't trust anybody. Right? So in that kind of strength, there's a sense of people, right? The dark energy of people, the jealousy of the gold, and the type of aggression towards the God, and the kind of I want to steal your glory, and that kind of masculine competitiveness. It seems very, very appropriate for that competitiveness. Like I want to destroy your God. Just destroy your God, because my God's the best. I want to take your gold, because I need all the gold, because I want to be the best. I want to, take your glory. I want to ruin your glory, because I want to be the king and I want to knock you off. So there's a lot of that goes on, and that has nothing to do with the emotional maturity of the people. It has nothing to do really with the people. It has to do with individual groups that are trying to compete and trying to dominate and trying to get one up on each other. It has nothing to do with the people in many ways. With safety, security, defense. So with our change that's happening with this Aquarian age, I feel the security, the protection, the defense is something that is going to be more of an internal discovery when people begin to heal and to emotionally mature and to really start to rewrite human history and rewrite what we're all thinking is our future, which is frankly quite destructive. When we think in our future, it's quite like we're all just going to kill each other and fire and hellhole, basically, right? So I think there's a sense of internal strength Lao Tzu's talking about. The people need to have an internal strength. They need to use that internal strength to actually program their mind to rewrite their history. And that's only going to happen from inside the people. It's not going to happen from whatever these type of authority figures are. It's going to happen from the people, them joining together and actually deciding to internally reprogram the mind through educating, through sharing, through connecting, through conversation, through information, through compassion, appreciation, respect, through artistry, creativity, building your lineage, healing from the demise of of these things, forgiveness, That's a kind of internal reprogram that happens, a sort of reparenting of your relationship with earth and humanities that really is the strength that changes the narrative and brings it into a fight, a fight that has to do more so the fight within ourselves, the enemy, the brute, the fear that we have in ourselves, the fight having to do with this sort of destructive way. That's what we're fighting, this constant destruction, fighting that, right? Knowing what it means to emotionally mature, knowing what it is to use creativity as a platform to really get the fight into the fight for people to have a greater knowledge, to be more sophisticated, right? To have that kind of education, to reprogram minds, to be able to reprogram the mind, to be able to emotionally heal, to be able to really graduate beyond sort of behaviors or habits that have no creative grit, have no life force, that have a sort of fight that really brings no prosperity, right? So whatever has life force is the prosperity. Whatever has the prosperity is the life, the victory, we can say. Whatever gives prosperity, whatever helps people emotionally mature, that gives the tool to reprogram the mind, or have a chance to at least try, or do as we do.